Osborne initiates RBS sell-off. Thank you for joining us for another Bank of Cardiff newscast. In a move that's not without controversy, Chancellor George Osborne has begun the process of transferring beleaguered bank RBS back to private ownership in the first sale of shares since the bank was rescued in 2008. The sale of shares is estimated to result in a likely loss of around £1 billion to the UK taxpayer, amid criticism from opposition politicians that Osborne should have waited for the bank to achieve more fundamental reforms before launching his privatisation operation. The sale of £2 billion worth of shares, a 5% stake to City investors, is designed to reduce the taxpayers' shareholding to around 73%. Investment banks, including Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley and UBS, have been appointed to act as book runners responsible for placing the shares with investors. So, is it a fire sale? Well, the Chancellor had paved the way for the sell-off in his Mansion House speech in June, despite the fact that the shares were even then valued below the £45 billion the taxpayer paid for them. He has attempted to justify the sale by explaining that losses on RBS would be outweighed by profits from other bailouts. Osborne commented, "This is an important first step in returning the bank to private ownership, which is the right thing to do for the taxpayer and for British businesses." He continued, "It will promote financial stability, lead to a more competitive banking sector, and support the interests of the wider economy." Well, the Chancellor's approach has been endorsed by Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, who has warned that delaying the sale could result in the taxpayer losing even more. Some analysts believe mainstream City investors, including pension funds and insurance companies, may be shy of investing in the shares because RBS's recovery is still in its early stages. So, what price stability? The announcement was made following the stock market close on Monday, 3rd of August. RBS shares ended the day at 337 pence, well below the average of 502 pence at which they were bought in 2008 and 2009 and were sold for 330 pence, adding up to a loss of around £1 billion on the tranche of shares sold overnight. If all the shares were sold at this price, it would equate to a total loss of £15 billion to the taxpayer. The sale of the first 600 million shares has been sanctioned on the advice of UK Financial Investments, UKFI, which monitors taxpayer stakes in the bailed-out banks. The release of the bank's first half figures at the end of July had provided an opening opportunity to start selling shares, even though the bank reported a loss of £153 million as it was hit by £1.3 billion worth of charges to cover fines and compensation to customers. So what next? Well, it's thought that a price of 407 pence would enable the government to recoup its investment, although if all the fees paid by RBS to the government are included, the break-even price could be as much as 441 pence. Under the terms of the sale announced by UKFI, no more shares in RBS will be sold for 90 days. The government's stake in Lloyds Banking Group has now dropped to less than 14% following the recent sale of another parcel of shares. The stake rose to 43% at the time of the bailout when Lloyds was rescuing HBOS. Join us later this week for another Bank of Cardiff newscast, and don't forget all our newscasts are available on our website. That's www.bankofcardiff.com/newscasts.